Hello everyone. It's good to see you today. Today we are going to try to summarize all of the consequences of the Reformation. The first consequence directly affected the Catholic Church. Simply put, the Reformation permanently weakened its position in Europe, particularly in Northern Europe, where most leaders became Protestant, and in England where Henry VIII destroyed the monasteries and appropriated church funds. During the Dark Ages it had been European religious unity that had endured through all those years of chaos. With the Reformation, the unity had ended. Now Europe was largely divided, as this map shows, into a Catholic South and Protestant North. With the Reformation came a growing importance on religious issues. Politics, both foreign and domestic, became heavily wrapped up with religious issues. Religion dominated the political scene. An outgrowth, or effect that led to expansion, that was caused by the Reformation, was the Protestant belief in self-reliance. This belief that the hard work of an individual would lead to personal growth became a precursor for the mercantile classes of Northern Europe to embrace capitalism and take it with them to the New World. Of course, because Gutenberg had printed the Bible, and the new Protestant denominations were encouraging people to read it for themselves, literacy rates improved. This improved literacy would affect learning of not only religious issues, but also other academic areas too. We cannot stress enough how important the printing press was to the events of this era. Remember how Luther's 95 thesis was spread so quickly. It took just 6 weeks for his thesis to be available all over Europe. That's a Renaissance equivalent of going viral. Also, don't forget the long-term effect of people being able to read the Bible in their own vernacular. Not having to read it in Latin took the Bible out of the hands of the elite and allowed regular people to actually form their own opinions about religious matters. This was a huge sociological change. So because of the Reformation, the Bible was available to be printed in English, French and German. Regular people didn't have to rely on priests who could read Latin to tell them what to believe. Now anyone who could read and develop their own understanding of the Bible, and as a result, they would ask many questions about Christian doctrine and beliefs. Well, of course, once people started asking questions, they started to question what they had been told. Was life just a stepping stone, or a waiting room, that had to be endured before the afterlife? A result of this questioning was a growth in secularism. Secularism is a concentration on the here and now, not on the will of the church. As a result, life outside of the church started to gain in importance. This would lead, eventually, to a growth of knowledge and philosophy that we now call the Enlightenment. This is a later unit in the World History and Geography Part 2 course. After all that people went through in the Reformation, the wars, the persecutions and inquisitions, eventually things settled down, and people became generally more tolerant to each other's beliefs. Protestantism itself became more fragmented and divided as different groups interpreted their faith differently. As a result, there are now well over 60 different Protestant denominations with over 156.5 million members in the United States alone. That's over half of the U.S. population. This diagram is an idea web that outlines and groups together the main features of the Reformation. Take a few minutes to look at it, and maybe you can jot down some of the key ideas. Behind me is a map showing how Europe ended up divided between the different Protestant sects and Catholicism. Alongside that is a diagram showing the main Christian denominations. You may want to jot some of these down perhaps. So to sum up, over a 200-year period, religion in Europe changed greatly. Along with these changes, and for different reasons, society and culture changed too. This diagram shows some examples. For example, in 1400, because of the Black Death, the population had decreased so much that labor was in high demand and wages had gone up. This upward trend of population led to such a large growth that by 1600 there was rapid wage inflation. In 1400, people ate mostly cheese and eggs, rarely did they eat meat or fish. By 1600, with the discovery of the New World, people were eating new vegetables like corn, as well as goods from the East like coffee and chocolate, tea, and spices. People used forks, not their fingers, and they now lived in cities, in brick-built houses, instead of in rural poverty in unhealthy wooden thatched roof houses. In generally, the social changes seen in the 200 years between 1400 and 1600 was bound to bring changes in people's attitudes and ideas to religion. So basically the Reformation was not only a cause of social change, but also a product of it too. That is a really important thing to realize. So that's the Reformation. Mr. Diakopoulos will tell you what you need to do next. I hope to see you soon, and talk to you about the age of exploration. Until then, work hard for the test. Goodbye.